The fight was already over. That is what everyone thought. Garou, the man who had torn through every hero, every monster, every god-level threat the world had ever produced, was finally on his knees, not because someone beat him, but because something inside him had gone so far past human that even he could not recognize what he had become. And then, from somewhere behind the smoke and broken earth, a single pair of ordinary boots stepped forward. Nobody was ready for what came next. If you have never felt your chest tighten watching an anime fight, this video is about to change that. We are breaking down the full story of what happens when Saitama walks into the moment Garou is at his absolute peak, and why that moment hits completely different than anything One Punch Man has ever shown us. Subscribe right now and hit the bell because this one matters. To understand why Saitama's arrival meant anything at all, you have to first understand what Garou had become by the time that fight reached its final stage. Because calling him a villain at that point would be like calling a hurricane a bad wind. Technically accurate, but missing everything that actually matters about the thing. Garou did not start as a monster. That is the part people forget when they talk about him, like he was always destined for destruction. He started as a child who watched heroes celebrated and villains crushed, and somewhere in that watching, he made a decision that the world had gotten it backwards, that the ones who kept losing deserved someone in their corner too. That idea, as broken and misdirected as it became, was never evil at its core. It was the logic of someone who felt the weight of unfairness so deeply that he decided to become the thing everyone feared, because at least then nobody could ignore him. Nobody could call him weak. Nobody could look through him the way the world looks through people it has already decided do not matter. But by the time we reach the final confrontation, that boy is buried so deep under layers of transformation that even the people who understood him once cannot reach him anymore. The hero hunter phase was dangerous but still human, still something you could follow, still something that had edges you could trace with your eyes. What Garou becomes after absorbing God's power is something else entirely. His body stops looking like a body. The ground around him does not just crack, it restructures, like the earth itself is trying to find a new geometry that can accommodate what is standing on it. The radiation coming off him is not heat exactly. It is more like the feeling you get standing at the edge of something that has no bottom, that specific cold understanding that the rules you have been operating under no longer apply here. Every hero who faced him at that stage felt it before they saw it. Flashy Flash, who moves so fast that most human eyes register him as light rather than a person, could not complete a single movement before Garou had already responded to something Flash had not even decided to do yet. That is the level we are talking about. Not reacting faster, anticipating intention before the body has committed to it, which is a completely different thing and a completely more terrifying one. Bang, Garou's own master, the man who shaped every technique Garou ever learned, stood in front of his former student and felt something he had not felt in decades of combat, not fear of losing, but the specific grief of recognizing that the person across from you is genuinely gone. The small thing nobody talks about enough is what Garou's face looked like during all of this. Not monstrous, not twisted into something cartoonishly evil, just empty in a way that was somehow worse than rage would have been. Rage means something still matters. Emptiness means the calculation has already been completed and the answer came back as nothing. His power at this stage operates on a logic that normal combat cannot interrupt. He is not hitting harder than before. He is rewriting the outcome of the exchange before the exchange happens, copying abilities and escalating them, folding the physics of the fight into a shape that only has one exit, and that exit belongs to him. The heroes are not losing because they are weak. They are losing because they are fighting inside a system that Garou has already solved. The way you cannot win a chess game against someone who has already seen every move you are capable of making and built a board that only has one ending. This is the moment the world is sitting in when part 3 of that final fight begins. Not a fight anymore, really, more like a formal confirmation of something that had already been decided. The heroes who are still standing are standing out of will rather than ability, which is its own kind of courage and its own kind of tragedy, because will without a path forward is just a beautiful way to describe the moment before the end. Genos is gone, not defeated, gone, in the way that word means when you have to say it quietly and not look at someone directly after. King is somewhere in the distance, being exactly what King always is in the moments that matter, which is a human being without any special power watching something happen that no human being should have to watch. The S-class heroes who built careers out of being the wall between civilization and everything trying to tear it down are learning what it feels like to be on the wrong side of that wall. And Garou is standing in the middle of all of it, surrounded by the wreckage of people who came to stop him, carrying the power of something that should not exist inside a human body, pointed at a future that looks like silence. And the terrifying thing, the detail that sticks with you long after the images fade, is that he does not look satisfied. He does not look like someone who has won. He looks like someone waiting for something, though if you asked him what, he probably could not tell you anymore. That is when the footsteps come. There is a specific kind of silence that falls when Saitama arrives somewhere he was not expected, and it is different from the silence that follows an explosion or the silence that follows a death. Those silences are full of aftermath, full of the echo of what just happened pressing against your eardrums. The silence that comes with Saitama is emptier than that. It is the silence of a world that has just encountered a variable it has no category for, and is taking a half-second to figure out what folder to put it in before realizing there is no folder and there never was. He does not arrive dramatically. That is the thing that keeps being true about him no matter what the situation is, no matter how cosmic the stakes have become around him. He walks in the way someone walks into a room where a loud argument is happening, not to interrupt it, not to perform an entrance, just because the room is where he needs to be. His cape is torn at the edges from something that happened earlier, and he has not thought about it since. His gloves are the same gloves. His expression is the same expression, that specific flatness that people who do not understand him read as stupidity, and people who have been paying attention read as something much harder to name. Garou sees him before anyone else registers that he is there, and this is where the story takes the turn that reframes everything that came before it. Because Garou, who has spent this entire arc becoming something that cannot be surprised, something that processes incoming information faster than the information can arrive, Garou hesitates. Not for long. A fraction of a second, the kind of pause that would be invisible in any other fight. But here it lands like a signal flare because nothing has made Garou hesitate since before he stopped being human. His cockpit ability should have already cataloged Saitama, should have already run the calculation and returned the result. But instead there is this small stuttering moment where the system encounters something it cannot file and simply holds, the way a computer holds when you ask it to divide by 0. The heroes who are still conscious notice this without fully understanding what they are seeing. Flashy Flash notices it because noticing things at that speed is what he does. Bang notices it because he has spent a lifetime reading fighters, and he knows what a body looks like when it encounters something it genuinely cannot predict. The pause is maybe half a breath long, and then Garou moves not toward Saitama, not immediately, but in a way that repositions him, that puts distance between them without looking like that is what he is doing, which is the most honest thing Garou's body has done in this entire fight because it is not strategy. It is instinct, and instinct does not lie. Saitama looks at what used to be Garou, and then he looks at what used to be Genos, and the sequence of those two looks is important because the first one is assessment, and the second one is something that cracks through the flatness of his face like a fault line opening in ground you thought was solid. He does not scream. He does not deliver a monologue. He just stands there for 1 second longer than he should, looking at what is left, and the quality of that stillness is the most frightening thing anyone present has witnessed all day, more frightening than Garou's radiation, more frightening than the collapsed landscape, more frightening than the absent sky, because everyone there understands on a level below thought that the man standing in that stillness is not calculating anymore. He is past calculating. He has arrived at the place on the other side of calculation, where things become very simple and very final. When Saitama speaks, he does not say something epic. He does not declare intent or announce power. What he says is small and direct and delivered in the tone of someone who has already accepted a truth they did not want, and that smallness lands harder than any declaration could, because declarations are performance, and this is not performance. This is a man telling you exactly where he is. The fight that begins is not like the other fights in this arc, and it is worth sitting with why. Garou at this level has been treating combat as a language he speaks fluently, rewriting exchanges mid-sentence, turning every opponent's strength into an argument for their own defeat. Against Saitama, that language stops working. Not because Saitama counters it, he does not counter anything. He does not operate on that grammatical level at all. He simply exists outside the system that Garou has mastered, the way weather exists outside the rules of a building. You can design a structure to withstand certain forces, but you cannot negotiate with rain. The first exchange is so fast that the ground does not have time to react until both of them have already moved past it. And when the shockwave finally catches up to where they were standing, the crater it opens is wide enough to swallow a city block whole. Garou adapts instantaneously, pulls every copied technique into a single layered response, throws something at Saitama that would have ended the world 3 fights ago, and Saitama walks through it. Not dramatically, not with a speech. He just walks through it the way you walk through a door, because to him that is what it is. And here is the small detail that no one talks about, the thing a camera would miss entirely. Saitama's left hand, the one not raised to fight, is hanging at his side, and it is trembling, not from exertion, not from power, from something that has nothing to do with the fight at all and everything to do with what he saw on the ground before it started. Stop for a second, because everything that just happened deserves a breath before we move through the door on the other side of it. Garou became a god, and it hollowed him out. Saitama arrived with more power than anything in this world, and he is the one who looks like he is breaking. The strongest being alive is trembling over something strength cannot fix, and the monster everyone feared is waiting to learn if anything in the universe can finally make him feel what he has been chasing all along. The answer is coming, and it is going to cost both of them something they cannot get back. The thing about a fight between two people who cannot be beaten by normal means is that it stops being a fight at some point and becomes something closer to a conversation. A brutal, world-splitting conversation happening in a language made entirely of force and consequence, where every exchange is a sentence, and every sentence is saying something that neither participant could put into words if you asked them directly. Saitama does not fight Garou the way the heroes fought Garou. He does not strategize, does not look for openings, does not try to dismantle what Garou has become piece by piece. He moves forward. That is the whole of his approach, the entirety of his tactical framework. He moves forward, and when something comes at him, he responds to it, and then he moves forward again. Against anyone else, this would be recklessness. Against Garou at this level, it is the only thing that works, because Garou's entire system is built on reading the shape of a fighter's intention and folding it back on itself, and Saitama has no shape to read. His intention is not a technique. It is not even really a decision. It is gravity. It is the way water moves toward the lowest point, uncomplicated and absolute. Garou throws everything. This needs to be understood clearly. Not some of what he has, not a measured response, everything, stacked and sequenced and delivered with the full weight of a being who absorbed the power of something that existed before the concept of heroes and villains meant anything to anyone. The blasts he releases rewrite the atmosphere and the space they travel through, leaving corridors of collapsed air that hang for seconds after the energy has passed, like scars in the sky. The ground between them does not exist anymore in any meaningful sense. It has been replaced by layers of impact recording every exchange like geological strata, each stratum representing a moment that would have been the end of any other story. And Saitama keeps moving forward. There is a moment near the end of the exchange, not the final blow, but the moment just before it where Garou does something unexpected. He stops copying, stops adapting, stops running the calculation. He throws a single technique, his own technique, something that belongs to him and not to anyone he absorbed, the water stream rock smashing fist that Bang spent decades carving into him, whether Garou wanted it carved or not. It is not the most powerful thing he has thrown in this fight. It does not need to be. It is him saying something in the only language left available to him, asking a question with his body that his mouth has forgotten how to form. Saitama catches it. Not deflects, catches, his palm closing around the strike the way you catch something someone throws to you without warning, by reflex rather than preparation. And he holds it for just a moment, one single suspended moment where both of them are connected through that point of contact, and something passes between them that is not power and is not technique, and is not anything the fight up to this point has had room for. Then Saitama hits him, once. The shockwave from that single punch does not travel outward the way explosions do. It travels downward, pressing into the earth like a thumb into clay, and the silence that follows is so complete that the heroes still conscious hear their own blood moving. Garou is not dead. He lands far away and stays there, the god power draining out of him like water from a cracked vessel, and what is left when it is gone is something smaller and younger, and more damaged than anyone expected. Something that looks, for the first time, like the child who started all of this. Saitama stands in the wreckage and does not look victorious. That is the word that keeps not applying to him, victorious, because victory implies you wanted the fight, implies the outcome was the point, and for Saitama the outcome was never the point. The point was something he found on the ground before the fight started, something he cannot undo with any amount of force, and the fight being over does not change any of that. He won. He always wins. That stopped meaning anything to him a long time ago, and today it means even less. The unexpected thing, the detail that sits with you after everything else has faded, Garou, lying in the crater that Saitama's punch pressed into the world, opens his eyes and looks up at the sky, and for the first time in this entire arc his face does something unguarded and involuntary. Not relief, not defeat. Something that looks almost like recognition, like a person who has been looking for something their whole life and found it in the last place they thought to look, at the worst possible time, in a way that cannot be taken back or traded for something better. He found his fight. Saitama already lost what made it matter. And the sky above them, cracked open and restructured by everything that just happened, does not close again.